And then we read the passage that records for us the betrayal of Judas with the kiss of death, the arrest of Jesus, and then almost as a concluding unscientific footnote, the end of verse 56 gives us this grim conclusion. Listen, folks. Then all of the disciples forsook him and fled. Me too? I will go with you to death? Then all of his disciples forsook him and they fled. Now, what happened between Gethsemane and Thessalonica? What happened that turned these fleeing cowards into martyrs? The record of history indicates that 11 of the 12 disciples were martyred for their faith in Jesus Christ. And the only one who wasn't was John, who spent his final years in exile and isolation. Every one of these men endured ultimate persecution after first falling asleep and then fleeing from a handful of soldiers. What changed? Or what produced an Apostle Paul, who wrote from the maritime prison, that cistern cut out of the rock across the street from the Roman Forum? As he was awaiting his execution, he writes his final letter to Timothy. And at the end of the letter, after he states to Timothy, I am ready to be poured out as an oblation unto Christ. He said, but Timothy, Demas has left me. Demas has forsaken me because he loved the world. And then he talks about those who were with him in his first imprisonment and said all of them had forsaken him. And Paul said, but Jesus has not left me. The experience of forsakenness by comrades, by friends, by co-laborers such as Demas was typical in the early church. There were those in the sands of the Circus Maximus who stood before the public and repudiated Jesus Christ. There were those who trembled before the gaping jaws of the lions and said, I recant. Some forsook him, but others did not. And I'm concerned in the few moments I have left to talk about those who did not forsake him. And I ask why? What turned Peter, James, and John from cowards into heroes? I think obviously the first thing that marked their transformation was the resurrection of Christ. They were eyewitnesses to the risen Savior. And they saw the truth of Christ. And they saw the significance of the truth of Christ. And they saw the importance of the truth of Christ. In other words, if you would have asked them, "Are you a Christian?" they wouldn't have answered that question by saying, "Well, sure, I'm an American," or "Sure, I'm civilized." They would say, "Are you a Christian?" And they would say, "Yes." And they would understand what that meant. They would understand the truth of Christ, the truth of the gospel, the truth of the cross, and then they would understand the significance of that truth, that it was not just some abstract, theoretical proposition, but it touched the deepest core of human reality and addressed the deepest problem of human existence. They saw the truth of the cross, they saw the significance of the cross, and they saw the importance of the cross, and so they would never compromise the cross. They believed the truth. They really believed it. And beloved, anybody who believes the gospel of Jesus Christ, if they understand it at all, would rather die than to compromise it. How could you understand the gospel? How could you love the gospel and go to sleep? There was no compromise in these people. Luther made the observation, where the gospel of Christ is preached accurately and boldly, there will always be conflict. We don't need to add any offense to the cross. There's already enough there. But our problem is that we try, as Doug has pointed out, to discount the offense of the cross, the offense of the gospel. And that's easy to do. Just don't preach it accurately or don't preach it boldly.